doctoral research is implementing principles of global citizenship education into university curricula. So what I'm going to do today is to share with you some facts and figures and explain you why I decided to focus on global citizenship education. Then obviously I'm going to explain some of the key points from my doctoral study, and then I'm going to address 3-4 points. The first one is etymology. So what does it mean cosmopolitanism and global citizenship, because the two concepts are interconnected. And then I'm going to address 3 questions. What is global citizen, global competencies, and global citizenship education, GC. And then finally, 8 curricular themes for a global competent curriculum. And then some ongoing tensions and conclusion. So some facts and figures. We have right now 57 million children that remain out of school. We've seen some interesting videos this morning. 61 denied in elementary education. 62 have had their schooling interrupted by conflict. And 103 million youth worldwide lack basic literacy skills. So to date, we have 25 million children that will never set foot in a classroom. The answer from the United Nations are the Sustainable Development Goals, and obviously we're going to focus on number 4, ensure inclusive and quality education for all and promote lifelong learning. Attached to this, the goal number 4, there is the Global Education First initiative promoted by the UNESCO. And my study, my doctoral research fits into the priority number 3, foster global citizenship. And that's the reason why I decided to focus on implementing principles of global citizenship education into university curricula. The focus of my doctoral research is higher education. And what we will do is to examine 20 to 25 university global citizenship programs and courses across Japan, the US, and the UK. By the way, I studied with UCL, but I'm based in Tokyo. And obviously, is very challenging because I'm researching on 3 different continents, but it's also very rewarding because I'm getting a lot of knowledge, especially with the 20 to 25 university we are working with at the moment. So within this 20 to 25 university we are working at the moment, what we do is to explore how they develop global competencies in their students and ask faculty and program chairs and directors possibly to describe how they're preparing their students to be global citizens. So obviously after this session, if someone is interested, I'll be very happy to exchange some ideas. And why not? If your university is promoting global citizenship within the curricula, then I would be glad to probably get in touch and then develop some exchanges. In terms of partnership and literature review, what I'm doing is to get in touch with UNESCO, Oxfam, World Study, Global Competence Certificates, and Columbia University Teacher College is doing a great work on global competency, and then obviously the United Nations. Research questions, very quickly. The first one is, what are the guiding principles within undergrad and graduate programs in terms of how they promote global citizenship within their programs? And the second one is how they are advancing the development of global competencies. The following up question will be, what global competencies do they focus on developing within these universities, and what global competencies are also least promoted and why, and what are the constraints within the 25 universities selected? And in terms of research methodology, UNTA's 2004 checklist for global competency. Obviously, if we want to teach our students to become global citizens, then we also have to measure what kind of global competencies they are developing. And then within that, obviously, we're going to focus on syllabus, co-curricular activities, obviously travel and study abroad opportunities, and language study and community involvement. A little bit of history. So when I get around and speak with my friends, they ask me, okay, your research is very interesting. By the end of the day, what does mean cosmopolitanism and what does mean global citizenship, and what is the origin? So in preparing for this presentation, I also wanted to study myself and try to explain in very simple words what we're talking about. So Diogenes was the first one that, without knowing it, launched a mass movement that I called the Cosmopolitans, myself included. I'm Italian, I traveled to London, I lived in London, I studied there, I worked there, and then I moved to Japan. My wife is Japanese, so we are a global family. So I feel like I'm a cosmopolitan. And he declared, I'm a citizen of the world. And then influenced Stoicism with a very interesting concept. Every person belongs to two communities, the local community of their birth and the entire human community. So that's where everything starts in terms of developing this feeling of belonging to an entire community, a global community. And then Heracles and Stoic cosmopolitanism is a next step. And we get to the Stoic cosmopolitanism in Heracles' circle model of identity. This is another interesting point. So as you can see here, ourselves, mind and body, family, fellow citizens, countrymen, mankind as a whole. So this is another word for global citizens, right? So our students should tend towards mankind as a whole for them to feel that they belong to an entire community, right? And so what is a global citizen? So cosmos means the entire world, we can say global, and polites is citizen. And obviously Kofi Annan suggested that legally no one could say that he's a global citizen. It's a feeling, it's an inner feeling, it's a sense of belonging. According to Gaudelli, a global citizen is someone who is aware of the wider world, respects and values diversity, understands world affairs, is outraged by social injustice, acts to challenge injustice, contributes to the community at all levels, is willing to act to make the world a more sustainable place. And then the following up question is, what is global competency? So Reimers here suggests that when we can say that our students or learner is global competent. Well, he suggests, Reimers is working at Harvard. I don't know if you know Dr. Reimers, but it's quite well known within the academia. Well, we can say that our students are global competent when positively inclined towards cultural difference. That's a statement. When has an understanding of diverse civilization streams, an ability to see difference and opportunities for constructive transactions, develops an awareness of world history, climate, health, economics, and improves the capacity to speak and understand and think in languages other than the first. And to give an example, I'm Italian, my first language is Italian, but since I learned English at academic level, let's say a communicative level, I can say that I developed a second personality. For example, when I speak in Italian, I'm inclined to complain much more than when I speak in English. That's why I always speak in English. And this is getting to the methodology of my study. This is Hunter 2004, the global competence model that I'm using for my doctoral research. As you can see here, we're getting to define global competencies, and Hunter suggests knowledge, skills, and attitude. We should measure our students' global competencies based on these three aspects, these three dimensions, he calls it. So it's very much similar to the circle of identity that we've seen from Heracles at the very beginning. So self-awareness in the center, risk-taking, open-mindedness, attentiveness to diversity, global awareness, historical perspective, and then outside intercultural capability and collaboration across cultures, right? So how are we going to assess global competency in our students? Again, on the knowledge side, for example, how they understand their own culture and other people's culture, norms and expectations. Do they have an understanding of the concept of globalization? Obviously, we can provide some readings, we can provide some role plays, knowledge of current world and events and history on the knowledge side, and then we have, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I'm happy to share with you later on after the interview, the presentation. But you can focus on developing skills and looking at how they successfully participating in academic projects with people from other cultures. I've been living this directly. I did my master's degree in TESOL in Japan, and I was working all the time with people from Japan, people from Canada, United States, so it was continuously a challenge in terms of cultural differences. And I was assessed on that, actually. So my teachers, back to my master's degree, were assessing me on what kind of skills I could develop within an intercultural academic project. So it's a very important part. Then we have intercultural performances, ability to live outside one's own culture when students are going abroad is a big emotional challenge. And then a part that I'm really interested in is attitudes, that oftentimes we kind of forget about, because as you were mentioning in your presentation, it's very important that we focus on the language skills and other very important academic skills. But then the students would go in a place of work, let's say in real life, and they don't have the right attitudes. So their skills are kind of getting not really highly valued because they don't have the attitudes, right? And so when we're going to consider attitudes in terms of global competencies, here we can see some examples. Do they recognize that their own worldview is not universally accepted? Are they able to understand that what's going on in Japan is different from what's going on in Canada, in the States, in Italy? We have a long list, but I developed my own one. I call it Attitude Plus 5. So when I teach my students, I also look into 5 characteristics. Humility, to understand cultural differences, sensitivity to scan the differences and similarities, and transform what we were discussing this morning, the us versus them thinking, okay? Indigenous are all animals. That's, oh, we are civilized and they are not. That's a very important point, second. Intellectual curiosity, to show interest about the dynamics of the changing world. Agility, to be flexible and learn on the fly transferable skills. Many of my students say, oh, I'm doing a job that is totally different from what I want to do. Perfect, wonderful. It's a transferable skill. You will use it in the future for sure. I did it myself. I did so many different jobs. And then finally, communication adaptability. So the ability to find new ways to adapt the communication, which is not necessarily to be fluent in a language, but be able to adapt the language to the context. Okay? So here I put some examples of how we can work concretely in the classroom to foster, for example, let's say attitude that I like, because we don't have time to go through all of them. But through discussion in the class, role plays, role modeling, values clarification exercise. I had one, but I realized that we didn't have time to go through that, so I can show you privately. Self-analysis is also very important. And then we can evaluate this through in many ways. For example, by observing behaviors of our students, right? This is a big indication. So what is Global Citizenship Education, GCE? First point, this is according to Oxfam, encourages learners to analyze real-life issues critically. Second, supports learners to revisit assumptions, worldviews, and power relations, as I was mentioning before. Focuses on engagement in individual and collective actions to bring about changes. And then finally, obviously, the concept of community that we've seen this morning involves multiple stakeholders, including those outside the learning environment, in the community, and the wider society. The problem, there is a big problem. The problem is that nowadays, most of the institutions are doing what I define and Hunter defined repackaging. They create a list of existing courses that students can or must take in order to become a global citizen. That means repackaging.